they compared the results of the human side and also the AI side. Every case that was identified by the human doctors or the radiologist was caught by AI, no exceptions. In addition, AI caught 11 cases which were missed by the human radiologist. And the AI app brought down the time for screening and doing the analysis, everything from, I believe it's typically 14 days. It's brought it down to 3 days.
Wow. All right, thanks for listening in. Have the XLM crew today with me on here. Nagesh, the CEO of XLM, and his team, Anand and Tanay, are also joining us today. So we're going to be talking about software test automation, how you can use that for the larger computer system validation efforts that the industry is doing. And more importantly, how is Gen.AI going to fit in within the software test world? So let's dive in. And I want to start off by asking Nagesh, you were very passionate. You messaged me on LinkedIn and you said, hey, do you want to do a podcast on these topics? And I'm like, yeah, do you know a guest? And you're like, yeah, I'm ready to record. So yeah, let's go for it. So let's start off by how do you, because you're doing a lot of software test automation, validation for your clients with your product XLM, you do consulting. Where do you see Gen.AI fitting into this larger picture?
Tough question, only because if you ask me where doesn't it fit, maybe it's easier because it's being used. Yeah, I do a lot of research generally on Gen.AI, but also on its applications in the area of life sciences because that's the arena we do business. We only work in life sciences area. So it's being used on the research side. It's being used on the healthcare side. It's also used to some extent in manufacturing, not to a large extent, some extent in manufacturing. So I want to give you a very specific example. Then I'll answer your question. For example, in the UK, the NHS, did a study of 10,000 women and for breast cancer screening. All the 10,000 women were looked at by a normal radiologist, like they would normally do. But also it went into an app called Mia, AI-based app. That was AI human, not human, but AI app. So at the end of it, they compared the results of the human side and also the AI side. Every case that was identified by the human doctors or the radiologist was caught by AI, no exceptions. In addition, AI caught 11 cases which were missed by the human doctor or the radiologist. And the AI app brought down the time for screening and doing the analysis, everything from, I believe it's typically 14 days. It's brought it down to 3 days. That is an example. This is a real study in the UK. And so I'm not just making up any of these things. If you go to my LinkedIn, I do list a lot of these interesting use cases where AI is used, whether it is using Vision Pro in the operation theater or a case like this where I mentioned, it is used everywhere in surgeries, in drug discovery. And I would say Google DeepMind is one of the frontier companies. Yeah. And their technology is used in many industries. And also companies like Intel are coming up with hardware and software where these are general purpose hardware software that can be used in the research arena to train. So you have a specific use case, you can train quickly. You're not talking about months or within days you can train and make that part of your workflow. And that is amazing. And I have posted about that also. So this is the current situation, Harsh.
Yeah, and I know before we started recording, we were having some conversations, and we have Anand here, who you said is doing a lot of work within XLM with some of the clients and projects around Gen.AI. So Anand, do you have any specific examples from the work that you're doing that you'd like to share here?
Sure. One of really interesting, fascinating case is one of our clients approached us to help them with their clinical data trial and management systems. So this is a perfect example of, helping them gain some efficiencies. So like Nagesh was alluding to before our recording session began, the CDMS trials actually involve a lot of edit checks, a lot of data collection, a lot of mechanics between the various forms that get produced and a lot of rules that have to be written, a lot of compliance-related stuff that they have to abide by. So one of the largest pieces of work that they spend a lot of time doing manually is the testing aspect of it. And that's where we said, maybe we can come in, use AI, and help them automate some of these testing processes, and in the process also generate the scripts that they use for manipulating these forms and the interaction between these forms. And that would cut down seriously the effort involved in generating these rules and also testing them. So basically from soup to nuts, the entire chain can be automated through AI. And we did a proof of concept for them, and it was really promising. And we are thrilled to be on this journey to make that dream realize.
Yeah, I want to double click on that, right? Because I've also interacted with a lot of companies in quality and regulatory use cases using AI. So I'm assuming that at some point when you're working with this client, their IT or QA team asked you around how will you demonstrate how this AI was trained, right? Like what was your training data set or whatnot? Because ultimately they're trying to figure out, can it be, are you sure you're going to get the same output with the same input, right? They have to demonstrate that to the FDA. Did you get that question, or how did you defend it? Or do you know, how would you answer that if you got that question?
Yep. Harsha, I would like to take that only because the reason is here, the way in this particular use case, the script definition is given by the customer. Let's say you are Pfizer and you want to, the Viva, we are working with Viva on this one. So you want them to set up the trial using their platform. So the checks or the edit checks, English description comes from the customer. And what the Viva professional services team does is, they take that and generate the scripts manually, then test it, and then life goes on. So for us, in this particular case, training, yes, we will use the previous studies to train the model. That's how we can make that model think. But in effect, we are testing it. So very fact that we went from English to generating the script and testing it, we have validated the whole life cycle. The testing is acknowledged by the QA, the human in the loop. So there is no questions anywhere. The reason is, like I said, it's validated. The whole solution is validated. In this case, in some cases, like you said, the data becomes a big question. So wherever we are working, we are using this validation to prove that even if somebody other than AI had done this, like the humans, we use the same testing methodology. So we are not shortchanging on that.
Right. Yeah, and as an outsider or looking at this industry, I've been in validation space for 12 to 15 years. I don't exactly know how many, but we had in the early days it was heavy manual testing done within the company. Then it started going to offshore testing to save the time, because it's much cheaper to do that. Then came automation testing. I know a bunch of tools, I won't throw them out here, but that was a big thing because everyone was doing agile. They didn't want to do waterfall. So then automated testing became a big thing. And now it's, integrating Gen.AI with automated testing. So you talked about some companies who are, already taking that step to do a POC or trying to experiment. What about the companies that haven't taken that step? What do you think are some of the challenges that are stopping them from, getting into this next
It's an extremely important question, and I talk to my clients also about this. So any company that would like to start, whether enterprise or SMBs, they have to get the leadership commitment. It has to be a top-down approach, not the bottom-up approach. The reason is, you need the vision for this. This is a new culture. AI culture is very new, meaning you have to push it by giving your workers or employees the commitment from the vision point of view, from funding point of view. And they need to clearly state where they want to be using this AI technology. That only can happen if the senior leadership has a very good idea as to what this can do for my company. Forget the tools. Tools is not important. It's just that the concept, right? The AI concept, how does it fit? And what do I want? And what's the timeline? And here are the funds to do this. Then, it can come down to the IT, all the automation guys, and to figure out what tools to use to achieve that, standardize it, and so on and so forth. But the key is, if you have not started on this journey, understand what AI can do and come up with a very good strategy, top down, and then, go from there. It's a must.
Yeah. I don't deny that, right? I mean, leadership commitment or having that understanding within the team. But one of the things I've noticed with companies is they don't have a good data integrity framework, right? If you cannot manage your paper and electronic data and you jump into AI, it's like saying, you just learned to drive a car yesterday and you want to leverage it today, right? So how do you convince them that, hey, you're not ready, to drive this machine?
I agree with you on that one. See, we should understand that, for data integrity also, it's a much larger field, right? Validation is part of it, but it's only a small piece of it. But it's a much larger field that touches cybersecurity to backup management, archiving, security, everything. It touches all aspects of your IT infrastructure. It touches. So for data integrity, they need to understand what is the data I'm doing, right? And how do what are the tools that I want to use? In an enterprise, like a very large company, they use many legacy tools to manage data, and data is touched by many different systems. So that needs a lot of money and a lot of rethinking. And I don't even want to get there. The reason is they'll take them decades to want to kind of, bring it to some good shape. But if I'm a smaller company, I'm just starting up, or I'm a mid-tier company, you have a lot of options. The key here is to understand that, you need a platform that can manage your data end to end, like a Viva or Atlassian, one of the platforms that can, if not 100%, you should be able to tackle 80% of your workflows. That is very important. The only reason is it becomes much easier for apps to talk to each other using the same data set and to manage the integrity of the data set. Because let's say you use Atlassian, you go through their security model, their backup and the backup models, as well as their audit trails, right? It comes out of the box, no matter what app uses the platform. And if you want to easily add e-signatures, you can easily add. So now all these basic Lego pieces are there, irrespective of the workflow, whether it's document management, application lifecycle management, QMS, whatever you want to use, all these basic elements of data integrity is already there. Now you can adapt that easily versus going to, different applications, making them talk to each other. And AI is integrated. If you use a platform like Atlassian, for example, AI is there at every step of the phase in terms of helping you do your work faster. So that's what I would recommend is, choosing a nice platform that can, if not 100%, 70 to 80% of your workflows, you should be able to do through its own offerings or maybe a marketplace offering, right? Because most of the big platforms are the marketplace. Now, if you can add that, then 80% of it is taken care of. There are always these outliers, like 20%, that you need to somehow do some extra work to make them talk to each other. So that is the key, because if you go with some of the smaller applications, data integrity is a problem. Their audit trail is not robust, their security is not robust, they may not support SSO, So you'll kind of, have to figure it out yourself or, put extra effort into it to make it DI or data integrity compliant.
Right. And for the another thing, like you mentioned, leadership commitment, and another pushback that I've seen from a lot of companies are, is just the challenges with like investing in technology, right? So they're not even going to automated testing, forget AI. They just want to continue doing it on paper because that's the cheapest way to do it for whatever reason, right? Maybe they're thinking, validation is just a documentation exercise. I don't need to invest in AI just to do software testing. So like, if you take a step back, right, think of now you said that, okay, if they're going to implement AI, this is how they can tighten up their data governance framework. But take another step back. They tell you like, hey, you know what? I don't care about AI. I just want to continue. I'm still doing manual. I slowly want to jump into the digital world. Then maybe 5 years later, I will think about AI. So for those kind of companies, mainly who are on a tight budget, I know a few because I've talked to them and they're like, no, I can't pay this much for validation. No way. So how can they still be, in this game, right? Because they essentially they have to do validation. They can't just
That's a very good point.
be out of it.
They have to do validation, whether it's AI or no AI, because FDA mandates it, right? They have to do validation. That I cannot change. But just to answer your question, let's say they have totally manual, which is very true with most of the smaller companies. A lot of manual processes are there. Instead of going to some application in between, then thinking of AI, that's a bad deal. You should not do that. Let's say India, for example, did not even have a cell phone. Would I start with 1G and 2G, then go to 5G? No, I won't do that. I go to 5G directly because the technology is available. Same thing will apply here. You need to look at a platform that already has AI built in. You're already manual. Skip that. Skip one and go to a platform that has AI features enabled. And validation, and actually I am very passionate about it. And that's the reason we'll be launching a suite called CDI, Data Integrity Platform for SMBs specifically. We'll be rolling out about 12 different services. The reason I'm stating that is to answer your question in this situation. The idea here is every service that we provide is very affordable and it comes with built-in validation. It has AI features and built-in validation, whether it's document management, risk management, application lifecycle management, your security when it comes to what we call the managed threat management, MTR, that is, everything is covered in these 12 basic services. Every service is given to you as a managed service and it's validated continuously. The reason we can do that is because of our various geographic locations. We are in the US as well as in India. That helps us a little bit. And also we have tracked it in terms of the continuous validation piece. We have automated it so much that, we can do it at a much better price point than doing it manually. We can compete with manual validation. We are far ahead. So they can get a better product, a better service and better validation using a service like ours. If somebody else offers, that's what they should be asking. Give me a service that's affordable with validation built in. Don't ask me to go somewhere else and get some other guy to do validation. That's expensive. The reason is they have to come from scratch and do it. So most of our SMB marketplace, like for example, we are partnered with other cloud vendors. Their customers are asking them, can I buy a package or a validation package that comes with your service? These are all cloud apps, right? So that's why we are partnering. So when they sell it to the customer, it's the same as SKU that comes with validation. And that becomes easy, So they look at the price point. Okay, I can afford it. I can not only get the managed service app, but also it comes with validation. That many of the customers are finding it very attractive and, and doable.
Yep. Yeah. And even in terms of just looking at like marketing or sales software, maybe 15 months or 18 months back, everybody was talking about ChatGPT, but now you look at the other marketing and sales apps that have been around before ChatGPT, they all had to, force and put some AI features in there, right? Because now they cannot compete with ChatGPT. So I think that will happen in life sciences. A lot of the SaaS companies are going to realize that, hey, either I put AI or somebody will take my, what my software is doing, maybe add extra features and put AI. And then it's almost like you said, an example, right? If I can buy the same, if I'm looking at two softwares that do the exact same thing, and one comes with all of these embedded AI features that can recognize the data, why wouldn't I pay for that? Because at the end of the day, when somebody launches a QMS, for example, right, they're putting data, they're putting documents, training, deviation, kappa, everything. So if you have an inbuilt AI that can already read all these data objects, it's a no-brainer. The company that is selling without the AI features will have a really hard time competing, with the others that have the AI built in. So I think we'll see. It is interesting because there'll be new companies that come with AI features, and there'll be existing players in, LIMS, MES, QMS spaces that will figure out how to embed, AI somewhere so that they are not, losing that battle. So it's a very interesting time to be in this space and see how these companies evolve. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think without AI, if I'm starting now and I don't have the tool and I'm in the market to buy a tool, right, I would not buy anything without AI because AI is efficiency, in my opinion, and it comes at a much better price point for all the value it adds, right? I can reduce my number of hours I'm going to be putting into a particular workflow because AI can do it better and also govern it better, and also proactively give me more information about the data, underlying data, which is not possible without AI. And everybody knows, right? We talk about data integrity. Someone said, right, data is the new oil. So data is important. AI can only become useful if I have good data. If there's no good data, then AI is useless, So I need to start with data, make sure it's good, it's validated, I can assure the integrity of the data, then have AI on top of it to give me the insights.
Yeah, so this again, I want to ask you this because it's an interesting topic, right? So we're talking about validation or software test automation, but when you look at the overall system lifecycle environment or phases in any regulated GXP regulated environment, you are starting from initial, software selection, planning, requirements, all of that. Then you implement, then you're maintaining and managing, and then you retire the system when you don't want it, right? So we've talked a lot about the operation phase, like how to use AI, how to do software testing. Now, if you take a step back and look at this whole life cycle from the day the company buys the software to the day they retire it, how do you think AI can watch and help them be compliant at different steps? Like things like, hey, did you audit this vendor? Okay, where's your audit report? Hey, based on your audit report, the vendor's not doing, this type of testing, or they're not doing penetration testing. You might want to consider this in your testing strategy. You see where I'm going? Instead of a human, a QA reviewer telling them, where do you see AI fitting this whole end-to-end compliance spectrum and helping, companies become more compliant?
Harsh, that's where you read my mind. That's what the company should think. Like I said, the data is a new oil. So all this is possible, whatever you mentioned, with the data, right? Ultimately, AI is looking at the data, looking at with a much larger brain, if I can say that, right? Because it's much more, compute power is more, right? Compared to 1 or 2 or 10 people looking at it. So this is how the company, the senior leadership especially, should understand that this is possible and it's coming at a very good price point. The competition is pretty good, especially on the consumer side. It's slowly coming into the enterprise side also, right? It'll take maybe another 6 months and you'll see more of the offerings on the enterprise side. Companies like ServiceNow have already incorporated this into their platform. So they can do all kinds of ticket analysis, and give you all kinds of data which you would probably never looked at it before. And it's part of the operating system, part of their platform that's happening. In our QA processes or any process within our life science companies, this is very important. It can do all the checks, like even before anybody even spots it, right? Like I said, in the breast cancer example I gave you at the beginning of this talk, it found 11 cases that the human doctors missed or radiologists missed. So that is possible now to do these 10 times more than what we are doing today. The AI can do it in terms of analyzing it, looking at the historical data, and also making sure that I can look at the data in many different ways and proactively do it. Just to give an example, we are working with a customer where we want to build an AI platform for manufacturing lines. This is a high volume manufacturing customer, a medical device manufacturer, right? So in this case, it's just at the initial phases. We have put together an SOW, we've done the study, we need to go into the POC phase here. So the idea is they have lots of data, billions of records. I'm not joking. It's literally in the billions. So they have the data, they have the reports, the standard reports, but they don't have AI strategy here. So the idea is that AI to increase their productivity, meaning the products that they make per shift, we have to increase that by looking at the data. And, and what we typically do is we have a gold standard run. Let's say in the last year, we had one day, which was the machine really worked nicely and everybody was happy because it exceeded their benchmark. So now that becomes my gold standard. Now I can constantly use my real-time monitoring or near real-time monitoring to understand, am I deviating? Why am I deviating? And can I proactively alert them so that they can take some action? Could be a particular zone, could be somewhere else. That's one thing, so that the productivity goes up. And also you can do predictive maintenance. So typically how they maintain is every 6 months I will do maintenance. How do you know that 6 months is a good period? Why not 9 months? Why not 3 months? So that we
or why not a combination? Yeah, why not a combination of 3 months, then 1 month, right?
Exactly.
If it's needed.
So those predictive maintenance, you can make it more efficient based on data, not because somebody said, SOP said 6 months. So you across the board do it 6 months. Also, we can let the operators chat with data. I put out a recent blog post in, can your application let your SMEs chat with data? So meaning, if I'm a line technician, right, I can go through. I have seen applications where there are 500 plus screens on a very highly automated machine, which has about 10 plus zones, 500 plus screens. Yes, the operators know it because they're trained on it. They can do it, but it takes some time to navigate it. And instead of that, you have that because you already have it. Can I put a chat interface where they can say, in zone 11, what is the current problem? How can I fix this alarm? So they can really, in using natural language, they can chat with it, and the bot can respond to it. Imagine, the bot either can give you the answer or even in the future, fix it automatically. Certain things, it can fix it. Or have a human in the loop, push the button, say, I approve it. It can do it after that. So that's the current situation to answer your question, Harsh.
Yep. And I want to jump over to Tanay, because when we were talking at the start of this, Tanay, you were discussing a really interesting project that you're working on, like using. So, because I know from listening to you, it sounded like you're using some components of Gen.AI to help the team become more compliant, like proactively. So can you share the example of what you're doing for the listeners?
Definitely, Harsh. So our product is called Project Jupiter. And as its name suggests, it is a diverse solutions platform. It not only has AI power in it, but it also has the domain knowledge that is required to make it full-fledged assistant. It won't only able to chat with you in a normal conversation manner, but also help you retrieve knowledge based on the entire legacy that has happened, along with the best practices that are used in that domain. So a lot of our clients have a tendency of wasting time due to unnecessary interaction because no one person has the entire knowledge. You have to jump around with different engineers, which essentially takes the time frame of a process, which could have taken, let's say, an hour, to go up to 3 or 4 hours. And that's what we are hoping to implement, is that a solution that has all of this domain knowledge, so that tomorrow on the whim, just a click away, you can get that knowledge retrieved. And Project Jupiter is not only made to just give you the knowledge, but is also capable of guiding you to make all of these complex, detailed documentations that are required. For example, you're going into risk assessment and you made some changes in the line. Now, how do you know what are the potential causes of failure that it can impact? One good way is that you have someone very experienced who has been working on these lines and let them handle it. But there is always a margin of human error. They might have missed something that might have happened 10 years before. But what would happen if that AI has all of those knowledge? We have specifically fine-tuned the AI to study all of this legacy information, and based on that, it is able to assess what could be a potential failure when you bring about a change. The moment you type about like, okay, I'm making a change in this line and the changes as follow, it will be able to assess and tell you that, okay, I think so, these are the potential failure modes.
Right. Yeah, it can also, as you're talking about this, I think another way or example where it can also be helpful is for doing release impact assessments with a lot of these cloud tools where, every year they're doing, if you're using like Salesforce or whatever, they're doing 3 or 4 releases each year. And if they send you a config spec, some of these are, thousands of pages of config document. There's no way a human can read that and really do an impact assessment, right? Like I'm not trying to put humans down, but it's not efficient. Even if a person can do it by doing Control F and finding keywords in a 1,000-page document, it's not sustainable. It's not a good use of time. So, in that example is also really good where if you can feed all of that requirements to testing, tracing, the configuration spec, right? So then when the next time you get a release impact assessment, you have your IT and your QA teams chatting with this AI to say, hey, Salesforce made this new config or new patch, what should I look at? What should I test? It's not that you're going to take everything what it gives you and just trust it blindly. That you shouldn't do that at all. But at least it gives you some ideas like, hey, look in that corner or go look there, right? So yeah, it's really interesting because I think because there are many cases where it's just not efficient for a human to actually go and look at all of these over and over again.
Harsh, you bring up a very good point. Anybody who's looked at those configuration spreadsheets, which is a dump from a cloud platform, they're very complex. Viva is a good example, or ServiceNow, for example. It's a human being, not that they cannot figure it out. It'll take a long time to understand the structure and figure out where to look for a particular change. In fact, Anand mentioned the project that he was talked about earlier. And in that project, we leverage that spreadsheet because once a script is put in place, we need to figure out how to navigate the system to go to a particular screen to test the rule. So we want to completely automate that. That information is in that complex spreadsheet. So we have to use that object hierarchy, figure out based on this rule where it's used, and based on that, our test automation can actually drive to go to a particular screen because it's not easy to go to a screen, depending on what type of screen it is. Sometimes it is on the 10th visit or the 12th visit, So we have to go to the 12th visit. So we have to enter all the values, go to the 12th visit, then trigger that rule. And that kind of information, the object hierarchy information, comes from that complex spreadsheet. So AI is better at doing that than human being.
Right. This is a topic that I have been very curious about over the past 3 or 4 months. And it's because I was working on a project with a big pharma client and we did a POC for them. And then ultimately, because the client was one of the top 10 companies and they had a lot of eyes on the project, they weren't ready to take that next step and, use AI for all of their commercial stuff because their concern was how can we demonstrate this to the agency, and they are talking to the agency to figure out what is the right, what is the wrong way to use AI, right? So the question I'm getting at is for people like, you have this product, XLM has a product with all the AI features. I'm in consulting. I'm sure there's 10 other leaders, in this space like us. How can we sort of sit in that room with the, big companies and the agency to say, hey, look, we are here to help you, right? Like we can figure this out, even if it's a new thing, because the companies are like, no, I don't want to take this risk. Your software is cool, but I don't want to defend this in front of the agency. So how can we sort of get that blessing from the agency that, hey, look, XLM has this product or this consulting agency can do this service, so that the companies are more receptive to, adopt it? Because ultimately we can do all the POCs we want, but this is where everything is coming to sort of, scratch, a dead end, because they're like, okay, will the FDA buy this, right? If I pitch this story. So do you have any ideas of how we can collaborate more between the companies and the agency?
They're the ones who are pushing CSA, right? If they're really serious about CSA, they have to make it, easy for the companies to implement AI. Because it's really a spirit of CSA is to have some logical ways of testing things, not use the same framework for every feature that, the software change involves. So definitely taking the spirit of the CSA, it is much easier now. Let's assume that FDA, all the agencies within the FDA are kind of, believe in CSA. Then it's much easier for us to have this conversation with them. So I can answer this in 3 parts. One is what Tanay mentioned. In that kind of a scenario, it will do all the prompting, meaning it's conversing with a human SME and helping that person make certain decisions. And that person can override any time, saying that, nope, I need to add this. No, I'm not going to take this. At the end of the process, as you know, in almost all QA processes, there is some kind of a document generated because that's a record of proof, right? So whether it's electronic or paper, so it's generated. So let's say I'm in the prep time, meaning I need to prepare this document. This AI tool will help me do the risk assessment, like Tanay mentioned. So it will step through with having a chat conversation. It's much faster because that SME doesn't have to go to 10 different places to get the information because the tool is doing it. But The SME is in charge of reviewing the final product. It's a Word document. Let's assume it's a Word document, and either editing it or maybe accepting it the way it is and sending it to QA. So in this case, it's very easy to justify. The reason is still the QA has to approve. Whether it's AI generated or human generated, doesn't matter. The QA has to approve. That's human in the loop. It's done. If you want to, let's say we have a lot of confidence that based on what the QA is signing off, so we have some data, right? Let's say we do 1,000 documents like that. So you have data saying, this is what was given to QA. This is a final approved document. What is that delta? Like he mentioned, we can train the model, right? And we can also have some good metrics around it. What was the delta between what it actually proposed and what the final document looked like? And let's say over time, it's very close. It may not be 100%. Let's say it's in the high 90s. So we have confidence that it's not going to make any major boo-boos, right? If that's the case, then you can put another model in the loop, but still we cannot just blindly accept it. So the QA person being in the loop, we can put a second model, which is different foundational model than the first model, to do the inspection and then release it. So that way it becomes AI. AI is the generator. Another AI is the QA person releasing it. So that's a possibility. And the third way to do it is that, what we call continuous validation of the AI models, meaning we have a set of, let's say, 100 or 50 use cases, test cases that we know the output for, meaning we already know what the output should be. Either we can run all the 50 test cases, it's possible nowadays with the continuous test automation, or we can randomly pick 5 or 10 based on some statistical analysis and generate the output and measure it against the original output. They should technically be the same because the same input went in, the same output should come up. So that's another way of doing it. And we are doing this model also. So there are I mentioned 3. Maybe in the future, we'll have more ways of convincing the agency this is more robust than what would happen if there were just the human beings were involved.
Yeah. I mean, this is really good, man. How do you keep up with all of this? Well, if somebody who is listening to this and they're like, wow, this is too much, and it's how do they catch up? Any blogs, any articles, resources for somebody who is just starting out? Where can they catch up on more stuff like this?
So I started realizing that because I was overwhelmed in 2023 after ChatGPT. ChatGPT came towards the end of 2022. So 2023, I started thinking now, I knew the power of ChatGPT. So I said, how will it impact mine? Because I am afraid that my job will be eliminated eventually. Yeah. So I went with that fear, right? So I started doing a lot of research. Even today, I spend about 2 hours every day understanding what's going on in the world of AI and how it will impact my space and my team, how it will impact it. All of them do it, but I do a little bit more because I am responsible ultimately to keep the engine running. So based on that, I started writing blog posts on LinkedIn, my own LinkedIn, on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day, where if they come to my thing, chances are that they'll get the latest information of what's happening in AI on my thing. But there are other, if you go through my post, I can send you the links that you can probably circulate that. I have many sites that you can use to stay on top of these technologies. But my LinkedIn post is definitely a good place to start. And also we are putting out some newsletters focused on AI in GXP manufacturing. That's our focus. And every Wednesday we put out a newsletter. It's our data, our use cases and case studies that we are incorporating into that one. So these are good places to start.
Right. I did read one of your, I don't know if it was a blog or a newsletter, but it was around using AI in supply chain, and that was very interesting. I don't know exactly the title of it, but the key idea was, understanding supply chain and where the hiccups are, and then how to use AI to predict them.
Yeah, I think it was a post that I put out.
Yeah.
I know, and major companies like Deloitte actually did a case study on that one. For one of their clients, they took that and made that into a case study where in the life sciences industry, how they're using the supply chain, employing AI at every critical point to make it better, more efficient.
Yep. That's it, man. I have nothing else. Thank you guys so much. This is a very amazing conversation. Any final words before we wrap this up?
From my side, yes, I would like to give a final. To me, even life sciences, whether it's manufacturing, clinical, or laboratory areas, will not be the same. So I really encourage senior leadership, especially the SMB companies, to stop all the technology projects and rethink on what AI can do and how will it change my business. And they have to then restart their implementations. They have to have AI strategy. No matter what size, they have to have AI strategy. I really recommend that they have to come with a top-down approach, then let IT do their magic.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because they have an unfair advantage. They are not the big pharmas that have been around for 40 years with billions of documents. They're new. So when you're new, you can you have an advantage, and they're not realizing the opportunity that's in front of them to use it, right? Because think about like big companies like Merck, Pfizer. If they had AI 40 years ago, where would they be? Like they've taken over the world by now. But yeah.
And one more thing, just 15 seconds, is there are many studios like Mind Studio and Anyscale.io where they give you a very easy IDE or an environment to build AI apps. No programming involved. If you want to program, that's easy. Everything you can set up in the workflow as a business analyst. I really encourage, especially the SMBs, to look at such products, to go from zero to automation within a day. I'm not joking. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an interesting space. I think we could be here for 5 more hours, but I have to drop off. So thank you guys. Great chatting with you. And keep working on all these projects. Maybe we'll run into each other if we're working in the same space. So yeah, thank you for your time.